Now, for those of you who may be brand new this week, normally my co-hostess Jessica Johnson is here beside me. However, we are still stay-at-home state, so you'll hear her voice in the background. So she's joining us by way of cell phone.
Yes, you just get to hear my voice. You don't have to see my roots or my unmade face or anything.
Right, you don't have to fix your hair that you haven't had a haircut in a while. I know, lucky you. So anyway, well, it's all right. I want to make sure for those of you who have cut and those who are about to cut your muslin so that you can do this fit along with us, that you be sure that you cut the right cup size. Some people, there are 2 sets in each pattern. And so the first half of the cup sizes that are in that pattern are a separate piece. So you got to make sure to read the cup size on the tissue so you get the right cup size in the first place. Jessica, I need technical help. I'm thinking we've got this thing reversed. How do I reverse the camera so it's doing the other way? Is it?
There's like an effects button. It looks like a wand, maybe.
Well, maybe this works out okay. I'll just see what goes on. Don't we usually do it the other way? Because right now it's not backwards.
Yeah, we usually do it not backwards.
Okay.
You're sitting where I usually sit, right?
Yeah, no. I'm sitting where I usually sit.
Yeah, then somehow it's backwards.
All right, let me just try. Well, I hit the one. I got all kinds of those special effects.
Yep. Let's see.
Bear with us, folks. I'm new at this. I need my co-hostess.
I don't know what you could have pushed to switch it around.
I don't either.
Okay. Shoot. Mine on my phone is different. It's up at the... Nope. You press the magic wand that's like a star.
Yep.
Okay, so then down at the bottom, there's like a wrench and a screwdriver.
Nope. There's a pencil.
There's a star. Mine's next to the pencil. You might need to scroll. Like a star, a clock, a mask.
Okay, I got a star, a clock, a mask.
Some other stars, a frame, a pencil, and then some tools.
Tools. Okay.
Like a wrench and a screwdriver.
All right, I got the tool. Now I flip the first.
The first one, yep.
Yay! Hi, everybody. Okay. I don't know if that's going to be better or worse, but here we are.
It will be less distracting to you.
You think so? No, now I'm backwards.
Okay, then you work backwards.
All right, I'm putting it back, and we're going for it.
Yeah.
It didn't go back.
Put it back.
It didn't go back. There. All right. Okay, I'm back, and I don't know what I'm doing, and that's obvious. But I do know how to work with the muslin, so we're going to get started. And again, remember, check your pattern if you already bought it so we know that you have the right size. Cup sizes on the inside, so look carefully. Cut out your muslin, and you're going to have sewn it together. Leave the shoulder seams not sewn together, but you're going to sew the princess seams, the side seams, princess seams in the back. Before you construct it or right after, some people have done it either way, it doesn't matter. But what we want is we want the center front line drawn on both fronts. So I've used a Sharpie. That's the best way to do it. we don't care because this is muslin. Mine is green because last week I used regular muslin and we just didn't get a good picture for you. So you're going to do the horizontal line for the center fronts on both fronts, and vertical. The vertical line for the center back. Then you need maybe a couple of horizontal lines. Make sure those horizontal lines are exactly perpendicular to your grain line or your center front line. And you can put your grain lines on if you like. I used the old tracing wheel to put my grain line on here so I could make sure that I got my horizontal lines exactly perpendicular to the grain line. And one of the best things to use is a quilter's ruler because it's got all those cross lines on it and it'll help you get it lined up absolutely perfectly. So if you have one of those, the see-through gridded rulers. Okay, so what I've done is I've done it in green this time. I've added a second horizontal line because I think it's just a little bit more helpful. The other thing that we didn't talk about last week is clipping the neckline. So what I did was I took a marker and I marked the 5/8 inch seam allowance around the neckline, and I also did it on the arm side just so I could see where that seam would end up. Did I have a sleeve in it? Because obviously if it came way out from my shoulder, I know I'm going to have to make an adjustment, and I want to do that before I put the sleeve in. And if it's way in, then we know we need to broaden the shoulder seam. So in either case, these are going to be really helpful lines to add to your muslin if you don't have them on there already. So 5/8 around the arm side, 5/8 around the neckline, and then clip to that 5/8. Just about a 1/2 inch apart is good enough. Now, don't make it all frayed up because it's just enough to let it sit at the neckline. And again, we're not making this into anything. It's just to help it fit best. So we're going to get that best fit. Okay. So when we put it on the dress form, you want to make sure that you line up the center front. And that's what I've always talked about, what dress forms are great for, because they have the center front line sewn right into the dress form, as well as the center back. The waistline is always denoted, or usually, by like a twill tape that is sewn in. And then they have the side seams as well. And in this case, you can probably see how large those stitches are. And they're specifically there so that you can line up anything that you're fitting on this dress form and make sure that those side seams are going to end up where they're supposed to be. Because it's a very important for comfort as well as hang, and that's why we're making a muslin. Because once we know this muslin hangs straight on our body and the side seams hit exactly where they should and the shoulder seams are the right depth as well as angle, then we know the garment's always going to look nice on us. And that's the whole point. We're putting some extra time in to create these muslins and these slopers so that we can go forward the last half of this year and start sewing like crazy without as the concerns we had before. Which pattern's going to fit me? Generally, none. Okay? None are going to be perfect to your body. So anyways, we have all of that constructed, and I know several of you are already at this point and have started making some fitting adjustments.
Hey, Janet.
Yes?
Well, speaking of that, if some people got ahead before you started, Sandy is asking, she already sewed it up before you explained about the lines, putting the lines on there. What should she do? She's wanting to know, should she take it apart or?
You don't have to take it apart. Just make sure, take the shoulder seams out. Hopefully you don't have those in, but if you do, rip them out. Remember, everybody, we're only basting this together. The longer the machine-based stitch, the better, because there is probably a 89% chance you're going to have to rip that out, because we're going to be making some changes according to your body shape, whether it has to come in or go out. So then it'll lay out fairly flat. You'll want to do each section at a time, but you'll be able to add those lines. On the pattern tissue, it tells you where the center front line is. And on the center back, it's the center or the fold line. So you'll be able to transfer those on there very easily without taking it apart. And then just make sure, again, when you draw these lines, that they are exactly perpendicular to the center front line. Wait a minute, excuse me. Oh, okay, got rid of that phone. Okay, does that answer the question? So you can draw them on afterwards. If you haven't put yours together?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it really doesn't matter. What the purpose of these lines are is to identify where it's going wrong. If you put these lines on, and you put this on your dress form or your body, and these lines are perfectly perpendicular to the floor, these horizontal lines, and the vertical line is completely straight with your body, you don't need to do much, because you might just need to take a little in. But chances are there's a shift here or there, and you'll be able to see it in a minute, because I'm going to show you on this particular one where the lines stop going horizontal as they should there, and you know the garment's not hanging right. Okay, so we did. Is there something, Jess?
I just was agreeing.
Oh, okay. You can do that. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. What I know about this particular body type that I'm going to be demonstrating today is that it has a rounded back. So I've padded the back of this form with something that might simulate a very rounded back, but something to it's a piece of foam, so that we can address those of us with that rounded back. Now, some of us have it more severe than others, but as we age, it's just a natural progression of the shape of the body. If you have if you have a routine of yoga or ballet or some of those types of things, you may not have as severe of a change because you're keeping your spine straight. But for those of us who don't or didn't, we're going to have that rounding, and it's going to be more pronounced as you get older. Okay, so that's what I've done with this one. So now, the first thing I want you to see is I've lined up my seam line of my front shoulder. So I have that. I also marked the seam allowance on the shoulders, 5/8, because I want to make sure I could line this front one up right where the shoulder seam would be, because I don't anticipate any huge issues with the front. I know I'm going to need more fabric in the back because I have to go around this. If I go straight down, I need less fabric, but when you have to go over an area, you automatically are needing to add that distance. And of course, it's not going to be there. Now, I've got these overlapped right now, so if I just sewed this up and put it on my body or on this dress form, this is how it would hang. Now, can you see the horizontal lines at the bottom? I can't see them in the camera. Can you see how that's pitching? Jessica?
Yeah. Well, there's a delay.
Oh, okay.
But I can see the lines on camera just fine.
Okay, and you can see that it's pitching at an angle here?
Yeah.
Okay. So
as far as those princess seams that you're talking about. I know you're talking about the back, but Janice is wondering if for the front, should they go over the apex area or should it be right towards the side seam a little?
Okay, this is Janice.
Yeah.
Janice, the princess seam should exactly go over the apex. And so when you put yours on, we're going to check that out. And if it's not in the right place, then you'll be taking from one side and adding to the other to get it where you need it. But generally, you're going to put that on, and then more likely, you're going to add or subtract someplace else. Usually, usually it's going to be added in here on the sides. But we just have to see, everybody's different. But let's go from this right now. So let's see how this is pitching. So what's happening here?
They have confirmation that they see the pitching. If you could push the dress form back just a few inches, we can see the whole thing.
How's that?
I'm sure better.
Okay.
It's not much that's getting caught off the bottom. Okay, go ahead, I think.
All right, so what I want you to see is how low the line is. And if I have this up here where it's supposed to be, this is kicking out. See how it kicks out from the body. And anybody who has this issue knows all about this, because we go into the department store and we try on this cute little knit jacket and we turn sideways and the back is 2-3 inches higher than the front. And it's not a good look. We're not happy with it, but if all we can get is ready to wear, we have to live with it for the rest of our lives. But that's not us. We know how to sew. So we're going to fix that. So we have this issue here, and we want these lines to stay straight. This is the first adjustment you're going to make if this is pitching. If this isn't pitching, then just sit back and be grateful. So now we're going to take this back and we're going to pull it down until we get a straight line. And now our shoulder seams are not going to match. As you can see here, it barely meets the raw edge. The other thing I want you to see is here. There's a distance here. And I know when I started to recognize I was getting a rounded back, as I'd look in the mirror and there was all this extra skin showing in the neckline here. And I'm like, why did that happen? Well, then you start analyzing your own figure and you say, oh, I see what's going on. There's not enough fabric to come up here. So we're going to have to add the fabric we need to get this to hang straight. So the way to get the extra fabric is just tape it on temporarily. Because everything we do here, we are going to transfer in a couple of weeks to our new sloper pattern. The one that is exactly us. So all we're going to do is just add the fabric in the back. And you could take this off of the dress form to do this. And then just use some tape to secure it in place. And I don't like using painter's tape. Masking tape works better. Painter's tape is not sticky enough on fabric. For some reason, it comes right back off very quickly. So masking tape is a better choice. Or that repositionable tape. Sorry for my back. Okay, so we've taped this extra fabric on and making sure it stays secure. Then we're going to come up here and pin our shoulder seam. We know the front stays right. We know we don't need, so make sure this stays level with that shoulder seam. And if it's on your body, you have to do the same thing. It's just a whole lot more difficult on the body than it is the dress form, but it's certainly doable. So then you find the 5/8 and you start pinning it across. And again, this is what we use pins for. And so as I pin that across, I may also be identifying a different shoulder slope. If I'm doing it on the body and I do have a shoulder slope, I'll be pinning along that shoulder slope. And once all of that pinning is done, then you take a particular, whatever color marker you might have, and you draw along those pins, right where those pins went in, because that's your new seam line. Okay, so we know we kept the same seam line in the front, so no changes to the front, only to the back. But also, because we don't have all the fabric to go up here, we're going to have to draw in. And again, on the body, this is pretty easy because you can feel the neckline, but it's all very easy on the dress form. So we're bringing that neckline up, we're bringing that shoulder up, and we've added that little bit of extra fabric. Okay, I know there's going to be questions here, so I don't want to go ahead.
Actually, not much.
Okay.
I really only have one, and it's not necessarily related to that thing that you just did.
Okay.
Laura wants to know, when would somebody choose to use the shoulder princess seam versus an armhole princess seam?
It's just a personal choice and the look. And what the princess seam does is it divides the body up, and sometimes, according to your body shape or your own personal taste, you like that divider coming out of the arm side better. And I'll tell you, one of the times they use it a lot is in color blocking. So let's say that you color blocked a dress, and if you make these side panels the darker color or the black, and then let's say the front's the blue and the sides are the black, and you do the same thing in the back, it immediately slims down the figure considerably from the eye. So that's one reason you would use a princess seam. The shoulder princess seam seems to be a little bit better for fitting the very large cups, so say triple D and up. The shoulder seam does give you a little more adjustment in this area. So if you know that's your area where you always end up with extra fabric up here because you do have a pronounced bust, then maybe you want to go to the shoulder seam.
Are you ready for another question?
Sure.
Okay. Nancy has a question about the rounded back adjustment, and I know that you had covered when we did the cape something similar. She said, I've always made rounded back adjustments by slashing my pattern from a few inches down across from armhole to armhole. It opens up. Is this, and then she tapes a long strip underneath. Is this just another version?
Well, it's a different way to achieve it. So we showed that adjustment. I'm assuming she does the same thing. It ends up with a center back seam. And right about here, the center back seam takes on a curve. And you figure that out when you do that adjustment. It's just automatic. And again, it's all about getting it level. And anybody who wants that adjustment, it is in the Easy Cape sew-along. But in the case of something like this, we already have 3 pieces to the back. And depending on the type of fabric you use, particularly let's say that it's a print of some kind, you don't want another seam down the center back. So this is a way to get a rounded back adjustment that doesn't make you have a center seam. Now, there's one more tip I'm going to give you, and I want everybody to know that probably everything I'm giving you is in the DVD for those of you who bought the packages that include the DVD. So get that out and take a look at. Connie's got excellent information in there. But one of the things that she will tell you is if you've got a severe rounding and this still is giving you some gapping, then you'll take a 1/4 inch pinch right here and create the tiniest little dart. You'll know where it ends. It probably won't be more than 1 inch long, 1.25 inches. And she was telling me that the most difficult she ever had to fit, she had to add tiny little, the same type of little dart at each shoulder seam to get it to contour to that rounding. And these are insignificant because once there's a collar on, you don't even know it's there because it's so short. But it'll give you that little bit of extra contouring. And everybody's body's different everywhere. And the aging is very different. So,
Yeah.
and the type of work you did your whole life, all those kind of things compound your body shape at our age. Yes?
Speaking of that and everybody's body shape being different, John is asking if you already know you're going to have several adjustments that need to be made, where would you begin? She says, do you begin at the top and move down, for example?
You begin right where we're beginning. Okay, so the first thing we know is that we have to get these lines horizontal. You don't want to make any other adjustments until you know you've got the whole garment sitting level. Because you could make another adjustment and throw the whole thing into a different atmosphere. So just trust me that you want to do this first, okay? And if you don't have this issue, this rounded back, you might have a shoulder slope. So that also would be in this particular adjustment on your sloper. So yes, this is where we're going to start. And then we're going to work our way down. And our sleeve is going to be last. And our sleeve is last for obvious reasons because we're making adjustments here and possibly here, which will all impact the arm side. So sleeve is last. And some of you have sleeve issues. Some of us don't have sleeve issues. The only sleeve issue I have is this, they're always too long. But some people have larger biceps and they might need to make certain adjustments to their sleeves and things. That will be the last thing you'll do.
Janet?
Yes.
Diane is asking for the DVDs. Has a new DVD been done or just a new package?
There are 3 packages for this particular fit along. The woven sloper,
I
bodice.
think she's asking specifically about the DVD. You just put a new cover on it?
No. It's called
I don't know.
Custom Fitting and Truing by Connie Crawford. And it's the only one under that title that she did, and I didn't change the title. And that's what's included, I believe, in package. I know it's in package 3. I think it's also included in package 2. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So if you bought either one of those packages, you will have the DVD. And in the beginning of the DVD, she shows you a different fitting method that I don't particularly subscribe to, but in a pinch it could be very helpful. And that's where she's going to, and she doesn't do it with princess seams. So if you're not ready for that, just move on to the next chapter, and you'll find where she's using the princess seam. And she does a fitting on a young woman, and then she does one on the mature body. So she covers a lot of the issues of the mature body, just like we're doing here. Anything else?
I don't know. Not until you start talking, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's probably true. All right, so and just like with any pattern, this sloper is going to have issues according to your body. Now for this one, you're going to see there, this is allowing for a lot more hip room than this dress form has. Look at all this room in here. So we know we want to take some of this in. And this is where you'll start pinning and obviously stand back and evaluate. Now don't get it skin tight. I don't want to pull this so that she can't breathe. You want to leave some ease in here. And that's a personal thing. I cannot tell you you have to leave 2 inches or 4 inches of ease. But if you're doing a princess seam garment, what I can tell you is, and in Connie's videos, she'll show it to you on a mature body, where by taking those seams in and contouring everything to the body, so many times when we get older and our body's not the pretty shape that it used to be, and maybe we've gained a few pounds, we try to wear things really big and loose. But when you get to a princess seam, by shaping those lines in, you start to see that female shape again. It's a little thicker than it used to be, but we can still contour to the body enough to make it look pretty, but it can't be baggy or it does no good. You've got to have some, you don't want too much ease. So just starting to get a little better shape here. And we can see there's a lot of thickness in here, but I'm going to do both sides before I start playing with the princess seam. But you can see this is accommodating the bust line, but then it's like really baggy here, and we might want a little more contouring here. And in that case, we'll take the seam, we'll open up this seam. So let's see. In this one, it's really more like a B cup, and I think this tissue went up to C. So you can see I've got more room than I need for the bust, so I know I'm going to have to take that in just a little bit around the bust to get the best fit. And then if I really want to contour, I'm going to come down and curve in a little bit more here. And once we get these pins in, you'll begin to see, and of course, this is our new seam line. And if you're doing this on a dress form, after you've made all these adjustments, sew it up and try it on. Okay, take it in this. I wanted to leave a little around the hip, but I think I'm going to take it in a little more. Yeah. Okay, so you can begin to see if we're taking some of this out of here that we're going to get, let me get this seam open. So, say something, Jess, while I'm working here.
Say something. All right. Well, Rachel asked the question, and I already answered her in the comments. But if we have anybody else new here who is looking for the information, Rachel was looking for suggestions on dress forms that you would recommend.
Okay.
So I sent her to our Fit series. If anybody's looking for information on dress forms and what you should be looking for, I believe that started on February 11th, and you can find those videos right in here on Facebook under the video tab. Oh, and Sherry says February 25th. Yeah, it was a whole series, and we started with how to measure and dress forms and all that. So you'll find it there in February.
So I think this is the best way to show on camera. We're taking this in. This is sitting with really nice, a little bit of ease, but not too big. And you can see the difference between this side. So we're snugging this in a little bit here so that we've got it fitting nicer on both sides of this panel. And again, I've got it, the pins are given a little funny shape here because I've had to go all the way up and take the cup size down a little bit. And we are going to show you how to redraw these lines so that they stay consistent with the right shape. Okay, so open up the cup size. Now, if it turns out that you have the opposite problem here and it's a little too snug, you got to open that up. Then you're going to repin your seam line and you're going to mark it. And once you've done that, then when we get to the part where we're going to the episode where we will be transferring everything over to the tissue, you'll have that information there. And that's why I like to use marker. You can, but use a fine tip or use a ballpoint pen. Something that's going to be permanent and that you can see well, but not too thick. Not too thick of a line. So I would go about doing the same contouring over on the other side as well. But you get one side down right, maybe even stitch it up and then try it on and make sure before you go double work.
So Patricia has a question regarding the bust.
Okay.
She said she found that her bust is higher than the pattern.
Okay.
She found that it's about a ½ inch too low at the apex. She said, I've been fixing by shortening the pattern this amount above the bust. Is that correct? Or do you have a recommended method?
No, I think she's correct. So what she's saying is her bust is about a ½ inch higher. So instead of 11 from here, she's 10.5 or whatever. That's the average amount. So just raise it. And so if you have a dart and your apex, your dart is going to be pointing towards your apex, and it's going to be about 1 inch from the apex where it ends. And you know your apex is a ½ inch higher, then your dart either needs to raise a ½ inch, but if it can't because of the arm side, then at least tilt it so it points to your apex. And that will give you a pleasing look, a custom look.
Okay, and hopefully that helps. Let us know. Brenda wants to know, should the block fit the dress form exactly, or how you would like the pattern to fit, hanging like the pattern would with ease?
Yes, you got to leave the ease in here. So you're trying to just have some wearing ease so that it's comfortable. But there's no point in having princess seams if it doesn't really contour to your body. So I'm just taking a little bit out of the back here. Oops, I ran out of pins. Oops. All right. Okay, and of course lengthening and shortening is the same as it is with any pattern. The other thing that you want to identify on your sloper before you're done is the hip line and the waistline. Now I noticed on the pattern Connie didn't have those marked on the tissue. So you didn't have any place to start with, which is okay because we're all different anyway. But identifying your back waist length and marking this is the waistline, identifying the fullest part of the hip and calling that the hip line. That's very important in fitting and going forward, because when you go to use your sloper and we superimpose it on another pattern, we want to make sure that we're keeping everything straight, and we want to identify the waistline. Because if you put it on another pattern and you identify the waistline and you line it up with your pattern, then you see that that back waist length is going to be an inch too short. You'll know immediately that you need to lengthen this pattern above the waist 1 inch so that it'll hit right at your waist. And that's an easy fix. But if you don't know that in advance, you make it up and it's not right. Were you going to say something, Jessica?
I can.
Oh, I thought I heard.
So, how, if people have specific issues to them, because I'm having a couple questions on specific issues to them, not that they wouldn't be helpful for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to try to answer those, or do you want them to email you?
Well, why don't you give me a couple, and if
Sure.
I can answer them, otherwise I'll refer them to the email. I'm taking more ease out of this side just to see the look.
Okay, perfect. So Sandy says, I've always had gapping on the center back neckline. Do you put a dart or something else to fix that?
So, this is Sandy?
Yeah.
She's having a gap. When she says a gap, does it like sticks out? And yes, because that's what's going to contour it. However, it should be just a very small pinch of a dart, like a 1/4 inch. If it's more than that, then an adjustment needs to be made someplace else. So you can see how much better, or well, that's why that's bagging up there. This is starting to fit, or at least I hope you can. You can see that it looks, more like a custom fit as we tailor this in. And again, I can't give you an answer as to how tight you want this, because that's you, and we talked about that last week. And there were people that said, yes, I like my clothes very close to the skin. And there are other people who that's very uncomfortable for them. They want more ease. So as we get this in here, the hardest part is this bust, because pins are not curved. Start to get that in there, and now how much better that fit is.
Janie wants to know, how do you correct a narrow upper chest and shoulder?
So she's narrow up here. As she fits it on here, she's going to take away. If she's narrow in the shoulders, we're going to trim the shoulder back right here. She's going to take a marker, and she's going to mark where the seam line would be on her shoulder. If she's narrow, that seam line might be back here, as opposed to where this one is. So you want to mark where the seam line would be, which is the very edge of your shoulder, where you want that seam line to be. And then we'll just move everything over. And it should take care of some of this. We're going to take that over. The arm size is going to come over. Everything's going to come over. And you want to do this and then work up a muslin and try it on before you call it a sloper. Because we all know what we're going to do with this sloper. Some of us are going to take our sloper and we're going to go on to add different shaped sleeves and collars and make jackets and design our own wardrobe. But most of us are just going to use it to superimpose over the patterns that somebody else has created that's so beautiful and we want to make. And then that's just going to help us confirm the fit. So your sloper can be either or both. I use mine for both.
Linda has a clarification question. The center front always stays the same even if you have to take 4 inches around?
4 inches around? You mean take it off or put it on? You shouldn't need 4 inches around. Then you didn't choose the right sloper size to begin with, unless you happen to have an extremely large bust and no hips. Then you're going to be taking a lot out at the hip. So I need more clarification on that one, because 4 inches is too much. In this one, if I wanted this nice and snug, yeah, I'm taking probably 4 inches out in the hip. But if I needed 4 inches everywhere, then I've got the wrong size, and things aren't going to line up where they're supposed to because of that. And then you have to fiddle with every piece trying to make major adjustments. So make sure you start out with the right size in the bust. And again, we can taper all this extra out here if we need to. But some of you might need to add. It just depends on your particular shape.
Yeah, Rose says she needs to add in the hips.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had more people, other people say the same thing. And that's fine, and you're going to do the same thing. You can actually, you don't even have to tape the fabric on. You can just, if you're going to cut it bigger, I know some of you already know, I need it bigger. If you're going to cut it bigger, then at least identify where the seam line was supposed to be. So then if I was going to add on way out here, I'd still do a little ink or a marker here where the seam line was supposed to be, so I maintain the right shape. And for some of you, you may need to add to the back and not the front. And that's why we're going through all this fitting, because we want to know how much do I need in the front and how much do I need in the back. And they're never symmetrical. They're never the same. So they don't start out the same. But for some of us, they're drastically different. For me, I've never had any hips, so mine's very similar, but it's still different. So, yeah. So you can just lay a piece of muslin. Don't put a seam in it. I lay them, let me show you. Just so we're clear. All you have to do is as if you had taped it together. You just lay your new piece, let's see, right on top at the edge here. If you've got to add, you've already got it cut out, and just straight stitch it down. Don't make a seam, just lay it on flat and straight stitch it down. It's not a garment we're going to wear. We just want to know how much extra fabric we need. So either cut that extra out and add the seam line, or add later if you have to, because that's okay. I've got plenty of muslins where I've added and subtracted. Subtracted this way, added this way, whatever. And it doesn't matter if we just get the right fit in the end. So, this is what we're going to do for next week. Is there any other questions?
Yeah. Lynn was wondering, she also has a 4-inch problem, but it's different.
Okay.
My front waist is dropped 4 inches from my back waist.
Wow. Now this happens in a couple of situations, but one that it most commonly happens in is the mature body. The waist starts to fall and the body just changes. So 4 inches. Okay. So you need to identify that. You need to identify that, and obviously what's going to happen, Lynn, is it might be low here, but it works its way back up to here. So your waistline is not going to be straight. Okay? So this is not a waistline. This is just a horizontal line. But if it was the waistline and it was hers, it would come here and then it would gradually go up to the back where their back waist is, right at the hip line. So this is where it would go and would come down there. And you want to identify that on your pattern piece so that you can make whatever necessary adjustments, because There are no patterns out there that are made for a front waist, a slanted waist. And there are a lot of people out there with that. When we do our pant drafting workshops, people are shocked when they go to draw that waistline and they see that the front is so much lower than the side seam and they have to make an angle like this. That can't be right. Yeah, it can be right. I don't know if there was any other question about that waistline, but obviously that's who she is, so that's what her pattern has to relate to. So there'd be this is the waistline at the side, center back, and the center front, so that you could identify the difference and then make whatever necessary adjustment on the new pattern. And it'll be obvious. It'll be so obvious once we have this done that totally reflects your body and your shape. Then when you lay it on top of the other pattern, it's so much fun because you go, oh, gee, I'm glad I didn't buy that pattern and just make it up, because I can see now it's too short here, too long there. It's got the wrong, the waist is in the wrong place. The shoulder slope's not right. Everything's askew, and it would never feel as comfortable or look as nice as it will once we get a custom bodice.
Yeah. Janice has a question. She is petite length. She says, I am petite length of my torso, but with a full bust. So she is wondering, should I work with all the vertical adjustments first and then work to get the balance with the horizontal?
Well, you're going to put your vertical lines. They won't change no matter how tall or short you are. Okay? So what she's saying is she's petite length from here to here. And so it is just going to end up being shorter. But that's all going to come out in the wash. Because once you pin all this, now the only thing, you got to make sure your apex is in the right area. And if it's not, and your bust is way down here or way up here, you're going to have to adjust this until you get it right. But chances are it's going to be general. Now, what did she say? She has a petite length but a full bust, right?
Full bust, yeah.
Right. So we're going to identify where your waist is, and very little is going to change. Very little is going to change. And once you identify where your waist is, then you're going to put it on your muslin and also transfer it to your sloper pattern. And then it'll be a slam dunk when you ever have to change a pattern again. But it's, getting this bust over here. And another thing I wanted to mention, and we didn't go through this, but if your bust is bigger than this and it's just popping out here, then what you want to do is add fabric to this side. Chances are this is going to this should hit the apex. This should hit the apex. But this is where you're going to need, when your breasts are bigger, this is where you need to add it. And again, if you pick the right bust and cup size, it shouldn't be a drastic difference. Otherwise, you might have to do both. But in this case, because Connie set us up with all these different size patterns to start with, we've got a good starting place. So you should not have to add a drastic amount if you've chosen the right bust and cup size in your pattern. But again, you'll be adding to this side. This is where the extra needs to come from.
Okay, Sherry has a question. She was having a hard time drawing the horizontal lines. She said, when I tried to draw them on individual pattern pieces straight, the individual pieces didn't match up because of the curved bottoms. It seemed to work better when I just measured the same distance from the bottom of the pattern, maintaining the curves. The lines on all the pieces then match up. Will this work out the same?
Yes, it doesn't matter as long as when you sew them together, they end up connecting. They end up being horizontal. You know what? even if this one was a little bit above this one, it's still about the eye seeing that it's straight. So even if you got them a little bit off, but make sure they're perpendicular to the grain line. And I measured up 6 inches with my 6-inch ruler, laid it right on there, big wide quilting ruler, from the side seam. And I know there are some angles there, so it gets a little confusing. But if you keep it perpendicular to the grain line, and that's why I don't know that you can see them, but I used the tracing wheel to put the grain lines on here so I could draw them. But it's not all about getting a perfect all the way around line as much as it is so that your eye can see where things have gone wrong and knows when you've got it right. It's right once you get the lines to be parallel to the floor. And once that happens, as long as everything's fitting you, it's going to hang beautifully. So the lines are about getting it to hang properly. And the rest is about comfort and good fit.
Okay, hopefully that helps, Sherry. We know you're very experienced in making stuff, so hopefully that helps. You know how to reach us if it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
Vicky is not so patiently wondering what about a sway back? Because you did the curved back. What about a sway back?
Well, a sway back is going to be taken in here. Okay, so if she curved more, we take it in here. Now, if she had scoliosis and it was really curved and then way back out like that S shape, you might very well be better off with the seam down the center back. And that might just be one of the concessions that you have to make. But you can take a lot of it out here, right here, because that's what these princess seams are for. So if it is not an extremely severe, you may be able to be very accommodated by just pinning these out and getting that nice. Once the fabric lays flat and there's no drag lines, and these lines are still staying parallel to the floor, you're good. I mean, you can't do this wrong because you'll know when you pin it out. If you've pinned, it won't look right. So then you'll take the pins back out and you'll figure out you've got to keep everything straight. Well, as long as you're keeping everything straight, you can continue to fit and contour to your body. The minute you start contouring and those lines start to shift, that's where you've gone wrong. Stop. And let's figure out what we need to do. And generally, it's adding fabric. And you know how we added to the back? Sometimes a person's going to take up more fabric in the front. And it's going to do the opposite. It's going to pitch the other way. And so you're going to have to make those adjustments for that as well. Ooh, she's starting to slip.
Okay. I hope, the questions come in quickly, so I think I got them, but I did want to make sure Linda knows that she can email you about, you did talk to her about the 4 inches around, and she has a specific issue, so I want to make sure she knows to email you so you can help her with that.
Yeah.
Anybody else has a specific issue, or if by some chance I missed your question and I apologize, islandersewing@comcast.net for questions on this series and this sloper and what Janet has talked about today. Right.
And if you've made the adjustments we've talked about today and it didn't quite come out and you don't know what you did wrong, make sure that you followed all the instructions, then send me a picture and say, what did I do wrong? But make sure that you take the time, and if you have that DVD, refer to the DVD as well. Connie's very clear in all of her instructions. And for those of you who just can't wait for me, because I'm going to be a couple more weeks before we get to the pattern, that's another good place to go, is your DVD that came in your kit. So you've got double help. You've got me and you've got Connie. And I know I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again. You do not need to crimp these seams in. If you have taken my Jacket Express class or have seen me put a sleeve in without any pins, you want to do the same thing with these princess seams because they go in smoothly. Whenever you crimp or gather a seam, you'll end up with little pucker lines along that princess seam, which is what happened to me last week because I crimped one and I didn't crimp the other one on purpose just to see the difference. So I didn't crimp anything this week and all of the seams were nice and smooth. So again, if you've seen me do that, I did it in the Islander shirt sew along. So you could even go take a look at it there. That's on our website under videos or it's here on Facebook. But it goes in so smooth. Any princess seam goes in smooth. Unless you have a very strong curve to that cup, you can do it all without pins. Okay, well, I think that's about it for today, unless there's anything else we can help you with. A quick question, anybody? Otherwise, I'm going to go see how the kids are doing in the pool.
The pool?
That is right. It's 53.
Desperate times.
It's 53 degrees out. The pool is heated because my husband opened it up early because we have this stay-at-home order and we have 3 children here. And he said, I'm opening up early. As soon as it gets warm, they can get in it. Well, the pool's heated. And you know, my girlfriend Joanne said to me, hey, we used to go out in a hot tub when we were up skiing. And it was a lot colder than 53 degrees. So finally I said, yeah, you can get in the pool. So I better go check on them. But anyway, it's been great Tuesdays at 2 here with you. I'm really looking forward to having my real live co-hostess back here. And I look forward to helping you get your muslins fitted and seeing what you can do with them afterwards. We're going to have a great time. So thanks everybody for coming. Jessica, you want to say goodbye or have any parting comments?
No, just, well, yeah, sure. I just thank everybody for being patient with us with the, the technical stuff and the questions. And it's a little bit harder than you would think to do it this way, without our nonverbal cues, or verbal cues, I mean.
What she means
thank you very much. We appreciate you being here, and hopefully we'll be in the same space soon. But I don't know if I'll be putting real pants back on, just so everybody knows.
Yes. Okay. Well, thanks again, everyone, and stay in touch. Our email address is islandersewing@comcast.net. Check out the website. We've got sew-along videos on the website. 3 different patterns have sew-alongs right there on the website. So check those out. And we look forward to seeing you next week at Tuesdays at 2. Thanks again from Islander Sewing Systems.
Bye.
Bye.